Thank you everyone for coming to our joint GVM today. This is a really fun event that we normally have every year as a cultural expo with all of the cultural orgs, but since we couldn't do that in person this year, we kind of transitioned it to an online forum. So we really hope you guys enjoy. So we'll just go ahead and get started, okay? Let's see if there we go, perfect. Okay, so for today's agenda, we just kind of have a brief overview of the different cultural approaches to each of our health products and everything that we're going to be talking about. We also have a Kahoots trivia game that we're going to have. So the top 3 winners will get some prizes. So it's going to be kind of fun today. And then we're just going to have a brief wrap up. So we'll go ahead and get started.
So I'm going to start today just talking about kind of like the Asian health perspective to medicine. So Asian Americans are the fastest growing racial group in the US. As of 5 years ago, the count was at 17.3 million. Something of note is that the vast majority are immigrants that were born in a foreign country. So that's something that's really important to consider when kind of dealing with health in this population. Something else that's really important to consider is that it is a really heterogeneous population comprised of at least 50 different distinct ethnic groups. So obviously, like, these people are like very different. There's a very big range of population. So that's something to really keep in mind when you're dealing with health and in this population. So just a few of the barriers to medical treatment in the Asian American population. One that is probably not thought of too often is low educational attainment. It's very commonly perceived, as a lot of you guys might know, that Asians might have like a higher educational attainment or maybe weller off, but this is actually not really the case when you look at all of the different populations that there are. Another thing to consider is limited English proficiency. As I said before, many of the population is immigrants. So their family, or like, they may not have a lot of skills when it comes to speaking English, and that may be a pretty significant barrier when it comes to them seeking care. And the final thing is cultural stigma, as I'm sure is common in many different cultures, but especially against things like mental illness. It's not something that's really talked about in Asian culture. It's kind of just not, it's more of a taboo topic that it's not really discussed. So that's something, definitely a significant barrier in this population. As I kind of mentioned a bit before, but a really important point is that Asians will typically only seek out medical attention when they're experiencing really severe symptoms. They kind of won't really go to the doctor unless there's like something really, really wrong. And otherwise, they'll often self-manage themselves with complementary and alternative medicine as a substitute for taking medications or seeing the doctor, because those are often kind of seen as not super necessary until you really need it. And then a final thing that's important to consider is a very collectivistic approach. A lot of Asians will kind of make decisions for health, especially like as a family. They'll kind of like think about it on a family, and then they'll make the decision based on what is agreed upon by everyone. So that's also something to consider. You may not be directly dealing with just like your patient's decision, but also what their family think is best for them. So yeah, that's just a kind of brief overview.
So I just want to jump into about talking about how Muslims view health and medicine. So just keep in mind that there are Muslims from all around the world, so culture definitely takes a big part in how a person will believe health, kind of what Islam teaches and what like most Muslims as a majority believe. So Islam places a very significant importance on taking care of your health. Taking care of your body is actually considered a religious obligation because your body is considered a blessing to you, so you should be taking care of it. Most Muslims will believe that illness is predestined, so it's either a trial from God through which sins are removed, an opportunity to receive spiritual reward, or a reminder to improve one's health. There's also the belief that health issues are best confronted with the combination of spiritual and medical healing. So a Muslim patient might take their medications as prescribed, but they will also believe that their healing is connected to God too. So they will probably believe that their healthcare providers are very important, and they're basically like the hand through which God will be able to cure them. And then I also just wanted to bring up some questions that you might be asked by a Muslim patient, especially if you work in the community setting. So for example, you might be asked, I'm fasting for Ramadan, but I have to take my medicine 3 times a day. Can I combine the doses? So just for some background on fasting, when you're fasting, you're not supposed to eat food or water, and that includes medications. So if you have a patient who's taking a medication 3 or 4 times a day, they might want to try to combine the dosage, or they might want to switch to a long-acting form. So as a pharmacist, you would have to use your clinical judgment to like compare the efficacy and the safety and the risk of combining the doses. And then you should be able to like provide your clinical judgment in a respectable manner. Otherwise, they might not want to listen to you. You might have to tell them that, you know what, actually you shouldn't fast. You should take your medicines on the schedule. And if you do so in a respectable way, I think most people will be open to listening to you. And then you might also get asked questions about taking diabetes medications while fasting. And you might also get asked if their drug formulations have gelatin in it. Muslims aren't supposed to eat anything that's made from pigs, which a lot of gelatin in capsules is. So you should be able to look up what the ingredients are in certain capsules and be able to maybe try to switch your patient to other forms if they need to. And that's all I have. I'll go ahead and pass it on.
All right, so for health and medicine in India, so there are currently 2.7 million Asian Indians in the USA today. And Chicago happens to be the home to the second largest population of Indians living in the States. That's right after New York City, actually. Asian Indians in the USA have several disparities in health outcomes and care delivery compared to the overall population. And these are actually inherently biologically tied to race, they've found in many studies. So Asian Indians may have high rates of obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. Other common medical conditions can include lactose intolerance, various CV diseases, vitamin D deficiency, and pain. And then, kind of like Jessica alluded to, there's a large emphasis on family and religion as well for India. So the traditional Asian Indian societies, extended family members are usually together in one single family unit. They live in the household together for a very long time. And then for religion, the majority of Indians practice Hinduism, and other religions include but are not limited to Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity, and Islam. And within all of those, there are certain cultural practices that we all need to be kind of aware of within that. And then there is also a potential for the language barrier. You know, although Hindi is the most widely spoken language, there are 31 recognized spoken languages in the entire subcontinent of India. So this is important to consider when interacting with patients from India if they don't speak English. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to Neil Marie.
Thank you. So like with the other groups and ethnic groups, Latin America is actually, Latinx is actually an ethnic group. So it's not race-based, it's more about how common culture and language among the different countries. So for the same, it goes along with the same logic than with the other groups, because there's so many different ethnic groups, including Cubans, Mexican, Puerto Ricans, Central Americans, South Americans. There's different cultures, religions, regardless of race, that can influence the way that Latin Americans see and use medicine. Latinx actually represents 18.1% of the US population. So it's about 58.8 million people in United States. And as I mentioned before, includes Caribbean countries, Central and South American, as well as Mexico, that is considered part of North America. In 2017, Illinois was considered one of those states with the largest Hispanic populations, followed by also in that list is California, Texas, Florida, New York, Arizona, New Jersey, Colorado, and New Mexico. So you will most likely have an encounter with a Latinx or a Hispanic patient at least once in your lifetime. Actually, if you live in Illinois, probably at least once a week, if not more. Latinx, like with other cultures and other ethnic groups, has a lot of influence from other things other than just medicine. And there's a lot of traditional healing involved in different parts of Latin America. And depending on what country the patient is from, they might have some differences in how they use healing as part of their rituals for medicine and traditional medicine. If a person is from Puerto Rico, like me, they probably will say something about Santeria or Espiritismo, which is like using what it sounds, spirits and religion involved with medicine to cure certain diseases. And you can also see that in Mexico and other parts of Latin America with different names, but sort of the same idea. there's something called Maldeojo, which is like when you have someone that is really, really, like some people believe that you have some diseases, or that your child might develop some disease because someone do not like you and is putting an evil eye and making something to your child or to yourself to make you feel a certain way. Same with some countries believe that in order for you to feel better or to get rid of certain like diseases or things that are affecting your life, you have to do a limpia, which is like cleaning yourself. And there's different practices depending on the country and what does limpia means and requires. But even healthcare professionals do this. So I work with a Mexican American pharmacist, and she mentioned things like this every day. So it's not just for patients, it's also with the people that work in the pharmacy and in other medicine settings with you as well. There's also traditional medicine. So like with my counterparts, like everybody else in the other countries, we have a lot of herbal supplements, teas, creams, ointments. And you can see if you go to certain places like CVS in highly predominant Mexican neighborhoods or Hispanic neighborhoods around, even here in Chicago, you can see the Hispanic product section, and you can see a lot of like herbals and teas and ointments that people really live by in Latin American countries. And like with everybody else that mentioned, unfortunately, Latinx health is also influenced by a lot of language, cultural barriers, as well as lack of access and lack of health insurance. Actually, Hispanics are the highest uninsured rate of any racial or ethnic group in the United States. So that's something to keep in mind too when you are considering in your pharmacy giving options to different medications to your patients, and consider that they most likely will be uninsured. And if they are uninsured also, they might not even have credit cards too, which is another thing. So they will pay out of pocket for a lot of things. So be mindful, and if you can find GoodRx coupons for them, that would be nice, because they appreciate everything that you do for them, and usually they are not even aware of this. And that goes for everybody that is an immigrant or from some other country, or even some not from the city or urban areas. Try to keep a mind of whether they know the information that is available there and options for making the prices go lower, even if they don't have insurance. And now I believe it's time for learning a little bit about Poland.
Yes, thank you, No Marie. Now is Papa's time to shine. So given the most recent data, there's actually an estimated 9.15 million self-identified Polish Americans, representing about 2.8% of the US population. I used to think Chicago was the biggest or the largest population of Poles outside of Poland, but New York seems to beat us by a couple million. So, but the traditional folk landscape of medicine in Poland remains strong, but it actually has been dwindling in recent years due to newer generations kind of growing up alongside scientific advances. And you could see that in almost any culture, not just ours. Various traditional means to healing are still widely used among Polish families today, but here and in Poland. Often you'll see more natural therapies kind of being implemented, using various herbs, vegetables, mixtures with spirits to kind of help stave off infections and colds, among other illnesses. Some specific examples I've included are a mixture of garlic and honey, and even using cabbage as a compress for ulcerations and bruises. And though this might help alleviate symptoms, it doesn't necessarily target the source. It is also common to find objects of both spiritual and religious importance in many Polish households. You'll see things such as rosaries, statues, or paintings of Jesus, and most likely pictures of Pope John Paul II. Such items are believed to kind of help individuals stay out of harm's way, as well as protect them from illnesses and shortcomings that might come their way. Praying for good health, and not just for oneself, but for their own family, is tradition as well. You'll typically find that grandmothers, or for the most part, any older traditional-oriented member of the family, plays a significant role in Polish families. This is mostly because they're respected as the most noble, oldest generation within a family, but given Poland's kind of troubled history, they're also seen as experts at getting through tough times. If you ask any of your Polish friends about any recommendations their grandmas can make about remedies for certain ailments, you'll be introduced to plenty. Family also plays a huge role within our own culture, as within any other cultures we've spoken about today. And it's typically occupied a dominant role in caring for both seniors and persons with disabilities or chronic conditions. This practice, for the most part, is rooted both in the culturally determined strong family ties, as well as the limited possibilities for care outside of the home. Mainly in the home, but I'm sure that can apply to almost anywhere in the world. You'll see a common theme of importance of family all throughout Europe and even past that. We as a people love our family to a high regard, and throughout many generations, the younger ones have taken care of the older ones more times than not. If you'd like to know more, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or any of your Polish friends to kind of find out more about certain traditional practices that I might not have mentioned today, that we might have going on in our households, and make sure to take notes on them.
Awesome, thank you guys so much. All right, so for the next part of our presentation, we do have our Kahoots.
All right, so the first question is genetic polymorphisms and which enzymes is responsible for the alcohol flush in Asians. So you guys have 30 seconds to put in your answers, and they're shown on my screen for the colors. Okay, so most of you guys got it right. So this one is kind of a bit of a trick question. I couldn't see why a lot of you guys would put the first one, but the second one is correct, aldehyde dehydrogenase. This is the one that kind of causes the toxins to build up that cause, as everyone would kind of recognize it as like the Asian glow reaction. Asians actually do have a polymorphism in the first enzyme as well, but that one is actually more protective against alcoholism. Okay, so which of the following drugs does not have a significant interaction within Asian genetic polymorphism? So as you guys might or might not know, there's genetic polymorphisms that are like common in different culture ethnicities that can kind of cause drugs to be metabolized differently. Yeah, good job, everyone. So it's amoxicillin. The enzymes that metabolize the other three drugs listed have pretty common polymorphisms in the Asian population that lead to them not being metabolized as well. So that's definitely something you want to consider, especially as a pharmacist, is to kind of look at your patient, see if maybe they could be one of these people, and maybe like that drug wouldn't be the best choice for them. So good job, everyone. So what does the ADA recommend is the cutoff BMI to screen for diabetes in Asian Americans? It is different from the overall cutoff. So good job. It is 23. So the overall cutoff to start screening is actually 25. But because of different body fat distributions in Asians, they're actually at higher risk at lower BMIs. So again, something that's pretty important to consider, but the cutoff is 23, which is pretty low. So which herbal medicine commonly used in East Asia is incorrectly matched with its indication? So 3 of these are correct, 1 of them is not. So the correct answer is Angelica sinensis or Dangui. So the other ones are correct. Ginseng is used as an antioxidant. Ginger is used for kind of GI upset. Kudzu is used for alcohol use, but Dangui is actually, one of the side effects is diarrhea. So it's usually used for like women's health issues, like menstrual symptoms, menopausal symptoms, osteoarthritis, those kinds of things.
All right, I think it's my question now. So Asian Indians have been noted to have the highest blank rates despite the conventional risk factors failing to explain this. A, asthma, B, coronary artery disease, C, gout, D, psoriasis. All right, yep, the correct answer is coronary artery disease. So according to a study done in 2018, Asian Indians actually have a 3 times higher risk of getting coronary artery disease to the general population, and that's higher than the US average. This is usually just attributed to the diet, the psychological well-being, other factors such as education, gender, and family. Awesome, looks like Kevin's number 1 right now. All right, so the next question. So what color is turmeric? And what is its main active component that provides these benefits? Obviously, a lot of people know that turmeric is one of the most common ingredients in Indian culture. It gives a lot of like the beautiful colors to our curries and a lot of our sauces. So which one is it? And read this one carefully. Yep, all right, so the answer is yellow curcumin. I bet any P3 can answer that one. But yep, that is what gives its beautiful color, the deep yellow color. All right, which two Ayurvedic herbs have the potential benefit to function as NSAIDs? Indians have relied on its natural herbs for centuries. Ayurvedic medicine is one of the oldest holistic, meaning like whole body healing systems out there. So which two of these have potential to function as an NSAID? Yep, okay, these are the two answers. Both of these can reduce pain and allow for more and better movement in people with osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Little known fact. I think I have one more question after we see the scoreboard. Ooh, it looks like we knocked off Kevin to 4th place, actually. Actually 5th place, I can't count. All right, and I think my last question. So what are some possible benefits one may see after enjoying a delicious cup of chai? As everyone knows, tea is the national beverage of India. Some of the ingredients common in chai are cloves, cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, any of those. What are some of the possible benefits? Yeah, we're definitely missing our chaiwala at Millen. Will definitely serve you the best cup of chai out there. Yep, all right, it is C, improved digestion. I feel like anyone who has probably enjoyed a cup of chai would tell you it definitely improves your digestion. But that is all I have for my questions. We can go ahead on to the next one.
Okay, so what percentage of Hispanics are uninsured in the United States? So I did mention that we are the highest, probably actually the highest uninsured rate of any racial or ethnic group in the United States. But which percentage of these ones do you think is the correct? Correct, so it's 32%, and the average, they are twice as likely overall to lack health insurance coverage among any other ethnic group. So empacho is an example of a dislocation caused by illness. Which of the following correctly describes what it is? So a lot of times when you have Hispanic or Latinx patients in the pharmacy asking you questions, they're gonna use words that have no really translation to the English vocabulary. And empacho is one of the most common ones that you might hear, and it doesn't really have a translation. So good job. So it's a form of stomach upset of indigestion, and it's because you ate something that was not good for you. And usually that's based on the belief that illness results in the dislocation of a different part of the body, and empacho is considered a dislocation. And is the most common treatment. The most common treatment for that is just rubbing your stomach or back gently while you're cooking oil and pinching the spine. When you had congestion, bug bites, sunburns, or actually anything possible, your mom would apply this magical topic while singing Heal, Heal, Little Frog's Button, or Sana, Sana, Colita de Rana. And they do this, by the way. So, is it manteca de ubre, cocoa butter, Vicks Vapor Rub, agua maravilla? Heal, heal, Little Frog's Button. Great. And because I believe in such a thing, I do carry with me in my ID, Heal, heal, Little Frog's Button with the Vicks Vapor Rub. And our last question. How would a person of Hispanic descent correct a cold condition? I mean, an example, upper respiratory tract infections. Would they use a cold remedy such as vitamin C or a hot remedy such as antibiotics? And just for a little bit of information, illness is thought to result in an imbalance between a person and the environment. So if it's expressed as hot or cold or warm or dry. So when someone is sick, it is because they're out of balance. So it's either too much hot or too much cold. And that was close. So whenever it is an imbalance, so you will have, in the case of a cold condition, too much cold. So you will want to use a hot remedy to fix the issue. And that's something to keep in mind, because according to some studies, if you give a patient with Hispanic descent and product that they consider is from the opposite. For example, if you say, oh, just use vitamin C for your cold, they're less likely to use the medication. A patient believed to have a cold disease, a disease that invisible symptoms, including the one that we presented here, would be less compliant if a cold remedy is prescribed. And then hot diseases are visible, so it's like fever, nausea, headache, indigestion, and then they will be cured with cold remedies.
All right, so I think I'm up next with Muslim type questions. So which type of insulin should a fasting patient avoid during the day? I kind of worded this weirdly, but I meant like which insulin would you normally take during the day, but a fasting patient should avoid? So the answer is Lispro, which is the rapid acting insulin. So that should be used in patients with diabetes who need to take insulin after their meals. So if a person is fasting during the day, they don't need to be taking their Lispro because it would cause like spikes. NPH can still be used when they're not fasting, and so can Glargine and Detromere, because those two are the long acting. For our next question, we have, which of the following is a common ingredient in drug formulations that a Muslim patient may prefer to avoid? I also just wanted to clarify that, like the answer to this question, you might have some patients who don't care if it is in their medications. People might believe, Muslims who aren't supposed to have this might believe that, oh, it's in medicine, so it's fine. So I wouldn't advise you to expect every single patient, a Muslim patient, that would want to avoid this, but just something to keep in mind that you might have a patient who, yeah, most of you got it right. So it's porcine-derived products, so basically anything from pigs. A lot of capsules, like I said before, are made with gelatin, which is made from pigs. So people might want to, if people are prescribed capsules, they might ask you like, oh, is there gelatin in that? And you should be able to know the answer and be able to switch them to something else if they prefer that. Which of the following thyroid medications may a Muslim patient prefer to avoid? Yeah, so the answer is Armour Thyroid. If you guys remember from 502, Armour Thyroid is the medication that's actually made from pig thyroid gland. Like it's literally chopped up pig thyroid gland. So a Muslim patient might prefer to avoid that. And my last question is, how many hours a day do Muslims fast during Ramadan? Okay, this is kind of a trick question. It's actually from dawn to sunset, not from sunrise to sunset. So we start our fast at dawn, which is earlier than sunrise. You actually have to finish eating before the sun starts to rise. So we fast from dawn to sunset. One thing I wanted to remind you guys, just so you know, is that the months of like Ramadan are not like specific to like our months like December, January, because the Islamic calendar runs on the lunar calendar. So our months are either 29 or 30 days instead of 30 or 31 days. So Ramadan actually kind of rotates months throughout the year. So it's not ever going to be an answer like 12 hours or 15 hours, because it depends what month Ramadan is landing in, or what season Ramadan is landing in. So like in the summer, we would have really long fasts, like 17-hour fasts, versus like in the winter, it would be like as short as 10 hours. So that's something to keep in mind too. And I think that's my last question.
Papa's is up next. What is the main leading cause of mortality in Poland? This one shouldn't be too hard to figure out. Just kind of use your noggin. You could probably bring in some outside information regarding where you currently live to maybe make this answer, but it's something that it's common not just here or in Poland, but you could find it in a majority of countries. So, all right. Well, the answer was cardiovascular disease. So if you got that, good job. Polish people are actually about 60% more likely to die from circulatory diseases than the average EU resident. So it is a prominent problem in Poland, not just in Poland, but obviously here. And as with any health system, even one such as our own here, within our field especially, stressing the importance of lifestyle changes remains tried and true. Next question. When caring for a more traditional-oriented Polish patient, one must most importantly take what into account regarding their culture? So this is a topic a lot of us have stressed when you are kind of discussing with somebody from another culture, though all of these actually can be argued as the correct answer. Specifically towards our population, the older population, you can think that this one holds a little bit more weight. So the answer was spiritual and religious beliefs. I've mentioned that religion is an important aspect that's included in our full culture, and even though modern medicine is making leaps and bounds within the culture, you'll still find religion playing quite a pivotal role within many households. You might see this kind of change as time goes on, obviously, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't at least be taking something like this into account when treating any patient nowadays. All right, third question. What is a typical natural remedy you might see being used in a Polish household? So I did mention this one a little bit briefly. Nil Marie also name dropped it. Okay, yep. So garlic and honey is a more typical natural remedy that you might see being consumed. I mentioned this in the presentation, but it's typically found in a lot of Polish households. I've used it plenty of times. It's loaded with both antioxidants and various nutritional values to kind of help fight off common colds, strengthen the immune system, reduce allergies, and even relieve coughs. All right, last one, guys. What percentage of the U.S. population do Poles represent? So I know this is kind of unfair because it was my first fact on my own slide, but if you paid attention, you should know. A couple of these were included in the presentation. So this one's just mainly just to see if you could remember numbers thrown at you. But if you haven't picked an answer by now, essentially the number is 2.8%. I did mention that the highest population is in New York, and then the second highest is in Chicago. You'll find that a lot of our Polish community is concentrated along the city's northwest side and southwest sides, with mainly along the Milwaukee and Archer Avenues, and Chicago's Taste of Polonia Festival is celebrated at the Copernicus Foundation in Jefferson Park every Labor Day weekend. So make sure to check that out if you're ever around town.
I was gonna say that if anyone had any interest in knowing a little bit more, like Tomas mentioned, you are more than welcome to contact any of us, and we will be here as, you know, to answer any questions that people might have.
And then there's also a question in the chat about lisinopril for diabetes and fasting.
Oh yeah, I just saw that, so I can try to speak to that a little bit. Since lisinopril is used for rapid acting, and it's used Lispro is used, Lispro or what did I say? I forgot. But Lispro is used for the rapid acting. You take it like 15 minutes before you eat. I think the question was if it should be avoided prescribing. I don't think it should be avoided because when they're not fasting and they're eating 3 regular meals, they probably need that coverage. So that's why their doctor prescribed it in the first place. I think you would probably have to look at each patient individually, but I think it would be appropriate to have the patient take their Lispro when they're fasting, like when they eat their first meal, like before they start their fast, and then when they break their fast. I think it would be appropriate to take their rapid acting insulin at the same time that they break their fast. So I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know.
It does. Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, if you look at when you do hospital rotations, you'll even see it there. It's like give fast acting or Lispro. This is even for non-Muslim patients. Give it to them if they have a meal. So it's always good to have that as a backup in case someone has to break their meal, because there's reasons why your fast would get broken. So I think it's good to have it still in their prescriptions as needed, but just let them know, keep them in the loop, and say, hey, you only need this when you take a meal. Or it's gonna be a little bit of a tangent, sorry guys, but one other detail is sometimes patients, their first meal, across all cultures, is a different first meal. Some is breakfast, some don't take breakfast, so it's lunch. So I think you just have to, every single patient is unique. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you brought a good point up about just counseling the patient to let them know what that insulin is for, so they know that it's for coverage of the carbs from their meals. So thanks, Shukri, for adding that.